Thank you for the warm reception. It's absolutely fantastic to be stood here talking about cybersecurity, only a short walk away from our European head office up on Grey Street. My name's Jody, as you can see. I'm one of the account managers here at Arctic Wolf. I've worked here for 4 years, specifically looking after the North East region, and I report to a lady called Claire Loveridge, and I've been tasked with giving a 15-minute insight into what we're doing at a high level across the organisation and what this means for what we're doing in the region here in the Northeast. And probably the best place to start is just a quick snapshot of who Arctic Wolf are. I'm not going to dwell on this. This isn't a vanity slide, but you've probably seen the Arctic Wolf logo around. Might see it on the front of a Formula One car. Essentially, what we offer is a cybersecurity operations as a service via a partnership model. Our definition of a partnership is someone you know by name, by number, who knows your organisation, who's in the boat rowing with you on a daily basis, proactively and reactively. And that's a model that's worked really well for us across the US up until about 4.5 years ago, when we realised it's working so well that the best thing to do is let's take this internationally. And that's when Claire Loveridge picked up the reins. And Claire would love to be here today, but she's travelling. Here she is. She probably wouldn't thank me very much for putting this picture up there, but I've just realised this is being recorded, so I'm probably in a little bit of trouble. But if she was here, she would talk very, very passionately about the culture that we're building at Arctic Wolf here in Newcastle. When she started looking for property to set down our roots within the UK, the easiest option would be follow the trend. Let's put it in London, let's put it in the M4 corridor. But what we quickly realised, or what she quickly realised is in discussions with the CEO, was how are we going to build the culture of the organisation and maintain it if it's not in the region where you live and where you've come from? So in 2021, we put our head office here in Newcastle upon Tyne, and we've been really well rewarded with some absolutely fantastic hires that have come into the organisation, some from a technical background, some from a non-technical background. The last 4 years have been absolutely explosive for us. We've grown to 2,000 customers plus in Europe. That equates to just over 600, nearly 650 here in the UK and Ireland. And we're really getting into our stride now. We're taking on about 40, 50 customers per quarter across the UK and I. So that's us a little bit in a nutshell. And I didn't want to dwell too much on that. But what I do want to talk about is what are we seeing at a high level and how is that mirroring what we're seeing in the region and regions across the UK and Ireland. So you've probably just been very much today about what happens when this goes wrong. You only need to look at the headlines to see high-level breaches, the MGM casinos, Marks and Spencer's, Jaguar Land Rover, very, very well documented. But a point I want to make is, for every one of these high-profile breaches, there's many tens or hundreds of others going through the same pain that these guys are. And we hear about it every time, all the time. People like us, people in this room today that are struggling to go through these types of incidents. So I thought it'd be worth spending a couple of minutes talking about the conversations we're having in region and how they're playing into what we're seeing at a macro level. So this is a good illustration. Don't necessarily need to dwell too much on the numbers because you could look at this through a Gartner lens, a Harvard lens, an IDC lens. But what we're trying to illustrate here is the orange line is the ever-increasing losses, financial losses attributed to cybercrime globally. The blue line is how much we're spending every single year as organisations on security tooling, solutions and services. And we can see that this is massively outpacing the spend. We call this the cyber effectiveness gap. We believe that this represents a massive opportunity to do something different when it comes to managing risk within an organisation. And if we distill this down into the conversations that we're having day after day, week after week, year after year within our regions, and there's 10 other people like me within Arctic Wolf, so we're often talking about the types of conversations that we have, and the 4 main topics always arise. The first one is risk. Is there something you can do to help me understand the risk that's in my organisation, put a financial number against that, and build it into some kind of business case that would stand up in a boardroom that we can then use to go and educate the rest of our organisation on our risk that faces us through our lens? And we feel that we could add massive value to that. We do over 1,000 incident response cases a year. Non-Arctic Wolf customers have been referred to us by the cyber insurance market. We work very, very closely with the cyber insurance actuaries. That gives us a great insight into building calculators with a high degree of accuracy based on a few parameters, including having a review of the annual report, and give us an idea of how much risk an organisation's taking on. So we would look at if there was a fully costed ransomware attack, business email compromise, data exfiltration, and then using calculators to amortise that cost. So how much risk am I taking on every single year as an organisation, and how much of that can I mitigate? Much in the same way as a cyber insurer would to calculate if you were asking them to give you an insurance premium. So we can do that for organisations, and we do it all of the time. The second conversation we have most commonly is operations. I am stretched. I'm yet to meet an IT director or an IT team that have everything under control and feel completely chilled. Everyone is massively overwhelmed right now. And what that leads to is a conversation that goes along the lines of, please don't try and sell me another thing I've got to try and put in my environment and feed and water and understand. Because the data I get back for it, I may not even look at it, or I might not even be able to interpret it in a way that gives me some meaningful insight into my organisation. I need to operationalise what I've already invested in. I don't necessarily want to start ripping out technology that I've already put in place today. So that's a big thing for us. That's what we call security operations. The third one is change. I'm really concerned that the threat landscapes within my organisation or at the macro level are changing all of the time. My IT strategy is changing all of the time because I have to keep pace with my organisation's strategy. How are you going to help me with that? And that's a big thing that we do. So the way that we do that is by aligning security expertise that can help customers guide, help customers plan and guide strategically. And what we'll do is we'll align them to a cybersecurity frameworks, be it NIST, Cyber Essentials, CIS controls, or it might even be a case of, I just need to demonstrate to my board we're getting better. Can you show me where we are today, where we were yesterday, and where we're likely to be tomorrow? Can you help me adhere to formal and non-formal compliance? Can you even help me get a better insurance deal? Not necessarily just money off my insurance premium, but can you ensure that I'm getting a package that's going to suit me when I need to claim on it? That's a big thing. That's the third thing that we do. The fourth thing is incident response. Talk to a lot of organisations that want help building an incident response plan that goes beyond just simple IT restoration. What are we going to do as an organisation if we don't have technology functioning? Who's our incident response commander? What's our insurance? Who's our insurance policy with? Are we going to negotiate? What are we going to sell to our customers? What are we going to tell to our employees? What are we going to say to the press? All of these things need to are sometimes completely overlooked when it comes to building out an incident response plan, because very often the consideration is, well, this is IT's job, right? I saw a presentation from a CIO a few months back, and his view was the business aren't going to get a lot of change out of an IT team during a ransomware attack. They're working flat out to restore everything they can. How we operate as a business is a collective problem. So workshopping that out, putting it into a plan and stress testing it is absolutely key. So the four areas are risk, operations, change, and incident response. And we feel that is our opportunity to partner with customers to try and get that better and close that gap there. So what other areas can we help organisations, being a big sort of vendor in the region? Well, the first one is data. Our job is to federate the tooling that customers already have put in place today. So that means ingesting absolutely heaps and heaps of information. It's becoming well documented now that data is going to be one of our biggest weapons in our arsenal against cybersecurity. So we collect 330 trillion observations a year. We've released a cybersecurity operations report on that. You can download it from our website. It's got some really interesting stats in there. So you think to yourself, well, data, that must mean power, right? Well, we kind of think, well, it's a bit nuanced. Data is great if you know what to do with it. And we feel that that is our job. We've become really adept at being able to weed out the signal in the noise of all of those events. And that is really important now more than ever. Threat actors have got really, really good at flying low level. So what I mean by that is finding ways of getting into an environment where you're not setting off big tripwires and setting off big alerts in dashboards. 1 in 10 customers last year, we discovered a low level near miss. And what that meant was, by stitching 4 or 5 different log telemetry sources together in a time sequence, we could see that there was a confirmed incident in play. Otherwise, would have been missed. Interestingly enough, in 85% of those cases, that did not originate on the endpoint. And we often think endpoint is the crown jewels of everything, right? So it just shows the importance of collecting as much data as possible and getting good at weeding out of that noise. And also, not overwhelming customers with lots of false positives. To put that into a little bit of context of what's going on in our region, if we just take the Northeast and Yorkshire, we are ingesting billions of observations just on a weekly basis, just on our user base up here. And going back to my previous slide, our job is to be able to crunch that information down and bring the outcome of 1 actionable alert per day for a customer. This is what we're seeing. This is why it's important. This is what we think you should do. And if there's a challenge around that, let's jump on a Teams call together, or we do Zoom, but go through this in detail. Phone call, someone you know, someone who understands your business. And if you are an organization that is struggling to keep pace with what's going on in IT right now anyway, trying to make sense of loads of information becomes quickly overwhelming. And if you don't have a partner on your side that's helping you weed through that and giving you actionable insights and outcomes, things become very difficult. It's a bit like that noisy WhatsApp group. I'm in lots of them. You just ignore it, which obviously is one of the worst things you can do because you're just introducing risk to your organization. So very quickly, life can quite easily look like this. So putting this together, I've got 3 minutes left, and I realize I'm going to have to talk quickly before I overrun. Our job as an organization is to help customers address their total risk in their environment, get good at security operations. That means augmenting the technology that they've already invested in and aligning humans that they know by name and by number that can be in the boat, rowing with them proactively and reactively. People like these guys who come to work every single day with a fundamental belief that everyone should have access to the skills, expertise, and strategic guidance to keep themselves safe. We feel that there's no silver bullets in life. And anyone that says, buy my thing, and you're not going to get breached is playing loose and fast with the truth. But we feel if we get better at the security operations piece, we can address a huge amount of risk within an organization. We feel that getting that final mile of risk off a customer's books is also important. So introducing things like the security operations warranty, so financial skin in the game should something happen on our watch. And then also, as I've talked about before, improving insurability. I've got 1 minute and 50 seconds left, and I'm not going to do this justice. Newcastle is where we are here to grow. We feel like we're just getting started. It's been a fantastic 4 years, but we are here to continue to create meaningful jobs, inspire people to check the opportunities around moving into a career based around technology, and embracing the Pat Gives Back. Everyone has volunteer time off within the organisation. It's always really interesting to see where they deploy that time in the local community of things that mean a lot to those guys. I'm really proud to work at Arctic Wolf. It's absolutely fantastic. And this is just a small smattering of the things that we do. So, in closing, 1 minute 7 left. Think of us as a big organisation, yes, but we feel that that gives the ability to provide the best of all worlds. We have data at scale, but we're going to play this through a lens that makes sense to our organisations in region, make the partnership feel local. If you're struggling to educate the organisation on the risks that they face around cybersecurity, consider the approach I spoke about earlier when we talked about doing some kind of risk assessment. We'll happily do those for many organisations. I was presenting one at a board only last week down in Darlington. And then incident response. It sounds pretty sanctimonious to say get yourself an incident response plan, but please get one and stress test it. And take it beyond what happens to IT. Take it beyond and to the broader organisation. What are your critical apps? Everyone thinks that my app is the most important. Workshop that out. And with that, I am done with 5 seconds to go. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.